Salutations! The Halo Infinite multiplayer beta has been out for over 2 weeks now, and I've had an ample amount of time getting acclimated with the game. At the time of writing the script, I've logged over 60 hours into the game and reached level 40 in the current battle pass, achieving this rank through mostly challenge completion. With all this time spent on Halo Infinite's multiplayer so far, I think it's the right time to talk about my overall thoughts on the multiplayer side of this game. In short, and let me know if you've heard this hot take before, phenomenal gameplay, but extremely disappointing cosmetic system. That's it, video over. If, and only if, you enjoy this video— I'm just kidding. As you can tell by the length of the video, there's much more to it than that, trust me. I'll thoroughly explain my thoughts on everything I've experienced so far, complimenting the good, criticizing the bad, and ranting about the ugly. With all that said, let's begin. My opinion on the gameplay for Halo Infinite has changed a bit from the tech previews, and I'll explain why I feel this way later, but there's still a solid foundation here that makes this game feel fantastic to play. The weapon sandbox is, at large, very fun to use, and quite a few stick out to me as being genuinely awesome additions to the Halo franchise. Probably my new favorite weapon is the Mangler. Its projectiles deal incredibly high damage to players, resulting in a 3-shot kill if the last round scores a headshot. There is a caveat, however, but I feel this actually makes the Mangler much more engaging and satisfying to use as a weapon. Unlike with most of the other kinetic bullet weapons in the franchise, the projectile speed for the Mangler rounds is not pseudo hit scan, and the rounds themselves have significant bullet drop. This requires users to not only lead their shots on a horizontal plane, but a vertical one on top of it. The Mangler also sports twin bayonets at the end of the weapon that allow for increased melee damage compared to the majority of the other weapons. Combining this with its high projectile damage allows for a user to kill an enemy with a combination of one shot followed up with a melee attack, making the Mangler a terrifying force in close quarters combat. All of this combined makes the Mangler one of my favorite weapons in the entire series, and I hope it doesn't change in the subsequent balancing updates that will inevitably drop throughout Halo Infinite's lifespan. The other weapon I'd like to bring up is the Cinder Shot. It's a Forerunner grenade launcher that has 2 firing modes, with its primary fire lobbing grenades that bounce on the floor like Halo 2's Brute Shot, and its alternate fire utilizing a laser guiding system much like the Ad Victorium from Halo 5. Its grenades also have a black hole effect that draws enemies into its detonation effects, making it harder for enemies to escape consecutive shots. The Cinder Shot's admittedly not as consistent against enemies as the rocket launcher, but getting kills with this weapon is extremely satisfying. Many of the returning cast of weapons are great in their own right as well. The Needler is very powerful up close, playing more like an SMG compared to the mid-range role its predecessors took on. The Assault Rifle, while it got slightly nerfed from the tech previews, is still a highly visceral weapon in its own right, and I love how it feels when using it. The aforementioned rocket launcher is a powerful anti-infantry force in its own right, and while I did mention in a previous video that I wish that it had a better anti-vehicle matchup, my opinion on this has shifted in the other direction. Considering how many anti-vehicle options that are in this game, I think it's for the best that we don't stack on even more ways to completely eviscerate vehicles. The Sentinel Beam in Halo Infinite is probably my favorite rendition in the series by far. It's powerful and it looks and sounds phenomenal. Lastly, the Gravity Hammer is amazing, although I still wish it had more instantaneous acceleration, or knockback, applied to the player when swinging it. The game does a really good job distinguishing this weapon from the Energy Sword by removing the far melee lunge it used to have, and giving it a swing with a long wind-up animation. As for the equipment, it's a great return to form having them be limited use map pickups unlike armor and Spartan abilities from past games. However, many of them do feel situational and not very consistent. The drop wall is a prime example. While it's intended to be used right before the player rounds a corner to engage enemies, even when it's successfully deployed, it doesn't offer a great deal of protection, just enough to have the player receive some extra insurance from opposing projectiles. Regardless, grenades are easily capable of getting around the drop wall, and when there's more than one aggressor attacking the wall, the destructible panels are taken out fairly quickly. The repulsor, thruster pack, and threat sensor have their uses, but I feel all of the non-power-up equipment items are overshadowed by the grapple shot. This is by far the best equipment piece in the game, providing a near limitless amount of utility and versatility. There's always going to be a situation where the grapple shot is going to benefit the user. That being said, it's so much fun to use and I can't wait to get to try this in the campaign when it drops on the 8th. The last thing I want to talk about for this segment is the map roster. While the map count is smaller than even the original Xbox version of Halo CE's map roster, I feel this collection of maps is the most solid we've had in a very long time. There are some maps that I feel are weaker than the others, but I don't genuinely dislike a single map in this game. Aquarius is probably my favorite map in the game so far. It's got that midship vibe to it in terms of layout, and the map itself just plays so well. As I expressed during the tech preview, I really love Behemoth as well. It's always great to see 4v4 maps include vehicles in them, and the art design is just fantastic overall. I have a great time playing on this map, except in the ranked playlist. I don't think this is an appropriate map to have BR starts on and vehicles off. It kind of ruins the map for me in that mode of play. One more highlight is high power. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I really do. The map is visually stunning, it actually includes the wasp at each base, and it feels as if most of the weapon sandbox is able to shine on this map, offering a great mix of close quarters combat and open spaces. I especially love the scripted event that plays when an objective point is earned. Seeing the frigate fire a Mac round against a supercarrier will always be an event I try to watch unfold when it happens. I feel the weakest map in the game so far is Launch Site, which is a shame because I love the visual flair this map gives off. I feel it's way too big for 4v4s, and there's just a lot of long, empty moments that happen in between firefights. Having a Slayer match on this map end via timer instead of getting 50 kills is a pretty common occurrence. Another weak map for me is Bazaar. Like I mentioned in the tech preview video I made, there's not a lot of flanking routes that are available on this map, and the top of the map is still inaccessible via grapple shot. That being said, both of these maps are not the worst I've ever played, and I still find enjoyable moments when playing on them. Halo Infinite has a sturdy foundation in place when it comes to the gameplay loop. However, from here on out, I'm going to become very critical about many of the aspects holding this game back in general. Going back to the weapons sandbox, I'd like to talk about some of the weapons that have received notable changes between the tech preview and this beta. Quite a few weapons have received nerfs, one of which was the assault rifle. In the flights, the AR was able to kill with just 14 shots, with 12 breaking the shield and 2 headshots for the finisher, or 5 to the body for a kill. Now, the AR still needs 12 shots to break shields, but the kill requirements are either 3 headshots or 8 body shots. This is actually quite in line with what I wanted out of a potential nerf for the assault rifle, and I'm glad that it's still a very reliable weapon in most situations. Except 343 decided to nerf quite a few other weapons on top of this. One of the more significant nerfs was with the Commando's damage output. Azulai made a really solid video detailing the nerfed Commando and how the lower damage output affected its performance, so check that video out to really have a better understanding on how the Commando has seriously been declawed since the tech previews. In short, the Commando has been nerfed to such a degree that it's thoroughly outclassed by the battle rifle and even the assault rifle at times. It's like we've come full circle. A year and a half ago during the July 2020 trailer, I was worried that the Commando was going to invalidate the assault rifle, but here we are with the opposite being true. The lower damage output combined with the incredibly small bullet magnetism range and weapon bloom with sustained fire makes the Commando way more inconsistent than the battle rifle in just about every situation. The Ravager is another unfortunate soul that was massacred by nerfs. The primary fire was very strong in the tech previews, with the optimal kill only requiring 2 bursts. That was easier said than done at a distance when factoring in the relatively slow projectile speed, bullet drop, and other players strafing away from your shots. However, the damage output has been nerfed to where an optimal kill now requires 3 bursts, and everything I just mentioned regarding what the user has to account for when engaging opponents with the Ravager has only made it even harder to use this weapon effectively. Why use this weapon against targets when I can achieve better results with the assault rifle and a frag grenade? I understand that the main reason to use this weapon is to utilize a charge shot to apply area denial fields near high value locations on a map, but just like with my gripes on the plasma pistol in this game, I feel if you're going to have a weapon with 2 different firing modes, they'd both need to be consistent and provide net positives for the player. Both the plasma pistol and the Ravager don't have them whatsoever. For the Ravager, I recommend bringing back the optimal kill time to 2 bursts using the primary fire, but perhaps have the area of effect damage or radius nerfed to promote more accurate shot placement. Meanwhile, just like with what I said in my tech preview videos, buff the plasma pistol's shield damage when using the primary fire. It's the quintessential shield stripping weapon, and it does a poor job doing that right now. The Bulldog received a rate of fire nerf that I also highly disagree with. The value that it was using before made this weapon feel very unique compared to the traditional Halo shotguns of the past, and with a single trigger pull not resulting in a kill, it kinda fills a similar role that the SMG used to fill in older titles. However, it fires noticeably slower now, resulting in a weapon that performs a bit closer to the shotguns of old, and I don't like it. Once again, Azalai has a video that goes over the technical aspects of the Bulldog that I highly recommend checking out. But the rapid fire rate of the tech preview rendition had a caveat where continuous fire gave the weapon an extremely high amount of bloom. This forced players to pace with the Bulldog, especially from greater distances, and I think it was fine that way. The Bulldog is still usable, don't get me wrong, but a lot of what made it special in the older builds was stripped from the weapon and I'd like it back to the way it was before. The last nerf I want to talk about is with the shock rifle. It now fires in 3-round bursts instead of 5 like it did in the tech preview. I would understand this nerf if it actually increased the amount of shots required to EMP vehicles, but it can still do this with only 2 shots. This nerf just makes the shock rifle that much harder to use against infantry opponents, and in my opinion anyway, it was already difficult to get kills with during the tech preview. I've been getting a bit better with the shock rifle, so all this might just be a skill issue, but I'd like to see this weapon become a bit more of a consistent option. Moving away from nerfs, I'd like to talk about some of the problems I have with a few of the other weapons in general, starting with the stalker rifle. Mind you, it's not impossible to use or get kills with, but I feel it's quite underwhelming when trying to use the stalker rifle within its seemingly intended role of being a DMR style weapon. It's designed to perform like a mini sniper, but the main drawback this weapon has is an incredibly slow projectile speed for a precision weapon. You're forced to lead quite a bit with this gun at long distances, but I found trying to do this is pretty difficult due to how mobile players are in this game. Not only that, the stalker rifle not only has scope glint like the other scoped weapons in the game, but the projectile's contrails are highly exaggerated, meaning just about everyone on the enemy team in a BTB match will know where you're firing from. All of these drawbacks don't make me want to use this weapon at a distance, but instead at medium range, and the result is a performance much like the DMRs from older titles. I think it'd be a good idea to increase the weapon's projectile speed to allow this weapon to perform its role as a ranged marksman rifle much better. The pulse carbine isn't necessarily useless as it can be a good team support weapon, but I hardly ever feel the need to pick one up when I can just pepper opposing shields with my assault rifle instead. This weapon can also be used to strip overshields, but considering that OS is a random spawn, its relevance in a match is pretty much non-existent when active camo takes its place. I think a slight increase in projectile speed would make the pulse carbine more consistent and worth picking up. Let's move on to vehicles, which in my opinion feel quite underwhelming overall. My biggest problem with the vehicles has to do with how underpowered they feel in comparison to older titles. They really feel as if they're on the back foot in this game. There's so many different ways to counter them, and worst of all, the visual damage feedback system in place doesn't do a good enough job letting the driver know 100% of the time if they're getting shot, at least in my opinion. It doesn't help that quite a few of the vehicles themselves are not very strong, and some of the better vehicles in the game are far too rare and hardly ever get the chance to spawn in. This game definitely needs a BTB heavies thrown into the mix to allow tanks, for example, to see more representation. Two of the major stinkers in the vehicle category are the following. First is the chopper. I don't know why to ever use this over the Ghost. It feels just as durable as the Ghost, but it's a much larger target, making it very easy to take damage. Its guns aren't all that powerful for having projectiles that travel so slow in the air. The Banshee is the other vehicle that I've had pretty much no success with on controller. Once again, this could be a serious skill issue on my end, but it feels clunky to fly compared to the Wasp, and the weapons it has are noticeably weak. Not to mention, it's frail and very easy to take down with team shooting or just one skewer shot. It's an extremely rare spawn, and when I finally get in one, I'm taken out almost instantly. The last thing I want to talk about in regards to gameplay for this chapter is custom games. A few days ago, at the time of me writing the script, I've had a game night at my Discord server for Halo Infinite that aimed to test the custom game lobby for this game.
Good showing whoever that was.
Bro, where'd you come from?
My mother.
Low rider.
I sense a lowrider.
No, wait!
I sense a lowrider!
No!
Did I just stick a threat sensor to your wall?
No!
I'm just like triggering you by just staring. I will now consume the lowrider.
Hey, what are you doing?
I'm walking here!
I'm trying to kill people here!
Why did they remove the EMP?
I have, like, the top half of my head just got, like, split open to that.
I don't know.
I see you. I see you.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Behemoth and,
Oh, my bones!
We've played Fiesta Slayer as well as Zombies, which was modeled after the Halo 2 community version. This was the case for Zombies because we don't have the Infection game mode in Halo Infinite just yet. So our zombies mode used a set of honor rules that had the survivors only use bulldogs and the zombies use energy swords. When humans are killed, they have to manually switch to the opposing team to become a zombie, and thankfully, in-game team switching was a working feature. I was thankfully surprised how well custom games were functioning for us, with the exception of some of my guests experiencing occasional crashes. However, there are certain aspects to custom games that leave me very perplexed. For starters, we were unable to control what weapons, equipment, and vehicles spawn on the map like we were able to do since Combat Evolved. I have a hunch this is because of the weapon, equipment, and vehicle pads that are the primary sources for map pickups. Pads roll between certain items depending on the category. For example, there's a type of pad that chooses between the battle rifle or the commando, and that pad will always roll between those specific weapons no matter what. Some vehicle pads roll between certain vehicles as well. Warthog pads will choose between the chain gun and rocket variants, while a ghost pad will swap with the chopper at times. Mongoose pads, however, will pick just about any vehicle in Fiesta, and you can have wacky scenarios like tanks on both Behemoth and Launch Site for example. This system is likely how it's going to remain until we get Forge, and that's honestly a bummer. I'm hoping for a workaround for this, but I doubt it'll happen anytime soon. Another thing that really annoys me about custom games is how unintuitive the free-for-all implementation is. There's no option to convert one of the team-based game types, such as Team Slayer or Team Oddball, into a free-for-all mode. You're forced to back out to the custom game type selection page and manually select one of the given free-for-all modes. This basically meant free-for-all Fiesta was not possible to make because there was no pre-made free-for-all version available at the time of this video's posting. Speaking of pre-made custom game modes, there's a noticeable lack of them in this game. There's no Phantoms, no Shoddy Snipers, no Elimination, no Hot Potato, and I can keep going on, but you get my point. One more gripe I have with custom games is that multi-team is effectively gone. There are only 2 team options not counting the Observer team, Eagle and Cobra. Even in the accessibility page for the UI, there's only one color option available for enemy players, meaning all enemies will appear with that outline color. So even if there was multi-team somehow in this game, good luck distinguishing which enemy is on which team. 343. Please implement more teams into the game to bring back multi-team, as well as providing outline color options for those extra teams. The last topic I want to cover for this chapter is Theater Mode. Admittedly, Halo Infinite's version of this has a pretty cool feature located in its timeline. It will catalog significant events that have happened throughout the match, such as multi-kills or killing sprees. This makes finding clips a much faster process and I'm happy it's here. If only everything else about Theater Mode was as good. I know we're technically still in a beta, and it's our job to test stuff like this and provide feedback, but the state of Theater Mode this close to release has me concerned. It's very buggy and features clunky controls for both gamepad and mouse and keyboard. On PC, if you're using a controller, there are no preset binds for the various controls, so you have to set them yourself in the settings menu. The game has a hard time 100% sticking with a single perspective. What I mean by this is when cycling through the players in a match, the AI voices used by those players will actually follow you to the other perspectives, and they will actually play their lines next to the other voices, which can make playbacks very confusing. Hopefully all of these issues are addressed relatively soon. Despite the criticisms that I've been talking about for several minutes, I firmly believe that there's a good multiplayer game here. But sadly, considering I haven't mentioned the topics I'll be going over now, you know where the rest of this video is headed. The monetization. Let me just talk about Halo Infinite's status as a free-to-play multiplayer game for a little bit. A hot take for sure, but I firmly believe that free-to-play was actually the right call to make. It's significantly easier to introduce friends to a game when there isn't a hefty price tag associated with it, and this allows the barrier of entry to be significantly easier to get past. I don't believe the concept of the game being free to play is the sole reason for the game's terrible monetization that's been put in place, and I don't even blame 343 100% for what's happening here. In older trailers, it was consistently advertised that everything that's capable of being unlocked in the game would be earned through gameplay at the very least, and there would be no FOMO, or fear of missing out, to worry about. While this holds true for the Battle Pass, which could be progressed at any time the player wants, this has proven to be not the case for the in-game store, as packs are being rotated on a weekly basis. There is indeed FOMO in this game, and that's horrible. I have a hunch that Microsoft is mainly behind everything related to the store and Battle Pass progression. I just find it hard to believe that artists would spend countless hours designing banger armor sets for Infinite's multiplayer, only to barely see anyone use them because of how much some of these sets cost in the store, or how long those pieces of content are going to be up on the store, or how long it takes to progress through the battle pass without a premium subscription. 343 has since made changes to progression by introducing daily challenges that award XP after each match, and at the time of this video, it starts at 300 XP for the first match, 200 XP for the second and third, 100 XP for the 4th through 6th, and back down to 50 XP for the 7th and onward. It's clear that 343 is addressing these issues the best they can with the time they're given, and I'm glad something is being done in a swift manner. However, this progression system has been nothing but a head scratch to me since the beta launched. I find it hard to believe that most people who tested this system before release thought it to be a good system. When the beta initially launched, there were similar daily challenges in place that gave players 100 XP for completing a match, but that challenge requirement would eventually increase from 1 game completed to 2 matches, then 3 as more and more matches were finished. It was a strange system and I'm glad it's been changed. On the subject of challenges, I'd greatly prefer that there were no kill challenges unless the weapons themselves are loadout tier, and that would include the assault rifle, sidekick, and ranked arena's battle rifle. I'm a gamer who prioritizes just playing the game for fun. However, I can't really do that when I have teammates who are ignoring the objectives because they have to wait for the bulldog to spawn and get kills with that before the weekly challenges reset. This causes players to not PTFO, and it's honestly a pain. If 343 absolutely has to have kill challenges, stick to having them for loadout weapons so players can just complete those challenges organically instead of through immense stress. Now, I'm going to talk about the customization system itself. Ever since Halo 2, player customization has been a staple of the franchise. Players in Halo 2 were given the opportunity to change their primary and secondary colors, choosing between a Spartan or an Elite player model, and even customize the designs of their emblems. These features only expanded as the series progressed, with Halo 3 introducing armor pieces that were achieved through unlocking the game's achievements. And we all know how expansive Halo Reach's armor customization got. All of this helped to create a sub-community within the franchise that dedicated time to fleshing out their player characters. It was the ultimate form of player expression. Halo Infinite limits player expression in the form of armor cores. The current 3 cores in the game are the base Mark 7, the Halo Reach style Mark 5B, and the Yoroi core. Each core has a bunch of unlocks to collect, but the caveat is anything you unlock for that core is married to that core only, meaning you can't, for example, attach a Mark 7 shoulder pad onto a Mark 5 Spartan. It's a shame this was the route chosen considering how vast the Halo 3 customization has become in MCC when 343 started introducing armor sets from the Fractures universes. We're able to have some of the base Halo 3 armor pieces mingle with these crazy pieces, and it's baffling how we can't do the same in Infinite. It'd be so cool to have a Mark 5 helmeted Spartan in a whole set of Yoroi body armor, for example. It gets worse though because this limitation also extends to armor coatings. This is my personal least favorite aspect of the entire game so far. How are you not going to allow me to use the set of colors on whichever armor core I want? How does Halo 2 give you more freedom of color choice than Halo Infinite? For example, there are a bunch of cool coatings on the Mark 5 set that I'd like to see on my Mark 7, but I can only use them on the Mark 5 set? Why? They're colors, for goodness sake. To make matters worse, in some of these $20 bundles, there are coatings that can only be accessed through these bundles, such as this Arctic Void coating featured in the Anubis pack. If I'm only interested in the coating itself, I actually have to spend $20 on this, and that really sucks. I really don't like the fact that armor coatings in general are a part of this monetization system. I understand armor pieces being a part of it, even if I find a lot of the non-helmet pieces to be unremarkable, but colors is taking it too far. And that's going to be it for this video. Halo Infinite is a lot of fun to play, and I can't wait to dive into the campaign on the 8th. However, the game still has a long road ahead of it, as there are major issues littered throughout the experience that hold it back. If, and only if, you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, leave a comment talking about your thoughts on Halo Infinite so far, hit the bell to be notified on my next upload, and subscribe for more Halo content on this channel. Make sure to follow me on Twitter and join my Discord server as well. I also have a Patreon where you can voluntarily donate to further support the channel. I'd like to thank my Singheili Zealots, as well as counselors Joe Antonelli, Cone Lord Daytona, Kyle Dielman, Lauren Kleckner, and Rad Mayan. This is the Vengeful Vadam, and I'll see you on the great journey.